Hi and welcome to Nana Teaches. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to be baking, and you could probably tell that by my apron that I have on today. So I have a great recipe, a fantastic beginning baking experience so that you can work with your grandkids on those really basic baking skills. So we're going to be making delicious dinner rolls today, very simple. The project is in two parts. So the first part, I will be showing you how to mix the ingredients together, and then we're going to set it on the kitchen counter to rise for a few hours and come back to it and make our rolls. So they will be so proud to have made a special part of dinner, and it's a great way to spend time together and make memories. And I will share the recipe below. You can grab it from the link below. And also, if you like these ideas and projects and activities that I share with you, please subscribe and you will get notified of upcoming projects that are coming up. So let's get baking. I love this recipe because there are so few ingredients and so few tools that you'll need that it's very simple. You're going to need flour, yeast, and salt, and some hot water for ingredients, and some measuring spoons, a bowl, and a mixing spoon, and that's it. All right, I want to share with you the ingredients to get started. It's very simple. There's very few ingredients for this recipe. You will need some flour. So I've got my flour in this handy plastic box, and so we're going to use 2.5 cups of flour, and I just use regular white flour. You could substitute other types of flour. Also, we've got some quick rise Red Star yeast, so baking yeast right here, and we have some salt. You'll need some salt. And the last ingredients is hot water. So you want to measure that out. Okay, the first step we're going to do is we are going to encourage everybody to wash their hands. I think talking about food safety and not introducing germs into our cooking environment is really important. So we want to make sure we wash our hands with soap and water. We make sure that our countertops are clean and all our utensils that we're starting are clean. Next step is we are going to make the dough. All right, so I need some flour in here. I'm going to measure out 2.5 cups of flour. And you can see that I'm filling the cup, overfilling it, tapping it to let it settle, and then leveling it off. That's one way you can measure it out. Some bakers will weigh their ingredients to get a very precise and accurate amount each time. But for these rolls, we can go ahead and use our measuring cups. Oh, and I need the 1/2 cup. So again, I'm going to overfill. I'm going to tap to settle and then level it off. Just like that. Then we'll add our salt. We need 1 teaspoon of salt. One thing I'm doing, I realize that's a little bit dangerous for new bakers, is to measure the ingredients over the bowl. You may want to have them measure it over a different cup or a bowl, just so if there's an accident and they overdo it, it'll go into the bowl and not into our recipe. And the last step that we're going to do is add the yeast. About 3/4 teaspoon of yeast. And I like to talk a little bit about what yeast is and how it works in bread. The final step is that we're going to add some hot water. It's 1 1/4 cup of very hot water from the tap, the hottest that you can get it. And at this point, I talk about how we have dry ingredients and we have wet ingredients in recipes and baking and cooking recipes, and how we typically will put all of our dry ingredients together. A lot of times we'll put all of our wet ingredients together, and then we'll add the two after. So we do all of our dry together, all of our wet together, and then we add. In this case, we're adding the flour, the yeast, and the salt together. Those are our dry ingredients, and then we're adding our hot water, which is our wet ingredient. So I'm just going to mix this up. It's kind of a doughy mess at this point. It's very sticky and kind of wet, but I want to try to incorporate all the ingredients. There's the final look at the dough. Not very pretty at this point. Now I'm going to put some saran wrap over, and I'm going to make it sort of airtight because we're going to be leaving this on the kitchen countertop for 3 hours to sit and rise and let the yeast do its work. So I'm going to kind of put this saran wrap on as tight as possible. You don't need to leave it in a warm spot, just on any kitchen counter will do. We're going to let it sit for 3 hours. So it takes about 25 minutes to make this up, and then it'll take about 3 hours to let it rise. We've let our dough rise for 3 hours now, and you can see that the yeast has fed on the sugars in the flour, and it's released the carbon dioxide that makes it rise. So it's ready to go. I'm going to take the saran wrap off, and I'm going to start forming the rolls. And this is the fun part. We're going to make sure we have our flour out. We're going to use a lot of flour. You can see the dough is really sticky, and you can't really work it with your hands at this point because it's too sticky. So we're going to liberally use a lot of flour to get it to where we can work with it with our hands. And the first step that they're going to need to work on is getting it away from the edges of the bowl and the bottom of the bowl. So again, we're going to use flour to kind of dust the outsides with so that it will start to pull away. Don't be afraid to use too much flour. It really won't hurt anything at this point. And so I'm just kind of scraping the sides of the bowl, trying to get most of the ingredients. I'm going to liberally flour my countertop so that it won't stick to the countertop. I'm going to spread that around. I'm going to put my dough out on the countertop because we're going to start kneading the dough. And they are going to get the real experience of kneading bread dough. Luckily, we don't have to do it for too long. It takes about 10 to 15 good kneads. So once we have flour on both sides so it's not going to stick to our hands, we're going to fold it over and then press and roll. Fold it over, press and roll. And we're trying to get all the extra sort of gas bubbles out and make it so it's kind of got this elastic type texture to it. And always checking, making sure it's not sticking to the countertop. We can always add more flour. And we're just going to need to press and roll after we fold it over. Now this is really fun for kids to do, and sometimes they'll have to get a little step stool to reach up to the countertop to be able to do this. But there's really no wrong way of doing it. So we kind of just show them once, and they're very good at doing this. So about 10 to 15 kneads. It doesn't take a whole lot. I'm looking for a texture where it will kind of stay in a ball, smooth. It's smooth, and it's sticky, but not too sticky to have in your hands without it sticking to your hands. Okay, I'm going to use a dough divider, and I'll leave the link below. And I'm going to separate. We're going to make 8 dinner rolls. So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to cut it in half. And you can help them with this. And remember, when you cut it, the inside's still going to be pretty sticky. Then I'm going to cut each section in half again, and that'll make 4. Okay, and then cut another half for each section. We'll make our 8 rolls. It's okay if they're not exactly even. Professional bakers, again, will weigh out to make sure that it's exactly right. But for us, I think it will be close enough to eyeball. Now here, this I would work on together. So it does take a little bit of time, but we're going to pick up each piece and we're going to roll it into a ball. And what I'm doing is I'm rolling over the edges and pinching them together. Because what I want is a nice smooth ball and I don't want these to come apart, so I'm pinching them until I feel like, okay, they're all the sides are connected together. And then you can see that one is done. If it gets, again, too sticky, just use a little flour. But I'm going to start on the next one, and I'm just rolling it into the ball and pinching the kind of bottom edges over. Just like that. And these will make nice round dinner rolls when we bake them. You'll see they look very nice. And then I'm going to continue to do the same. If I need more flour, just use a little bit more flour. No problem. Okay, we'll speed up things a little bit, and we'll see. Now you can do 4, they can do 4. Sometimes they get a little tired at this point, so it is helpful to kind of divide up the tasks. If you have more than one baking working with you, you can have some of them, you know, you can say you do 3, I'll do 2, you do 3. Something like that. And it's interesting, you know, you put so much work into this that when you make something from scratch, it's a lot of work, but when they come out of the oven and people are raving about them, kids will feel so proud that they were part of making this. And it really is an introduction into baking that will give them some good foundational skills of working with yeast, of waiting and letting things rise, right? Mixing up, using hot water, those types of things be very helpful. Now, what I've done is I've taken a baking sheet and I have lined it with parchment paper. So it's just a single sheet of parchment paper. And I'm going to place the rolls, kind of spread them apart on the parchment paper. You should be able to fit all 8 onto one baking sheet. No problem. They don't really spread out as they bake, but they do plump up and they get taller. Okay, so here we have our tray ready to go in the oven. And before we bake them, the last step that we're going to do is I'm just going to cover them with some kitchen towels. And we want to let them sit for about 30 minutes before we put them in the oven. While you're waiting for the rolls to sit for 30 minutes, it'd be a great time to go ahead and get your oven preheated to 450 degrees because you want that oven at 450 when you put those rolls in. Now, after 20 minutes, you're going to take the rolls out. And I want to show you, we're going to do sort of a pre-check. And when they're done, you'll see that they're starting to brown on top. So they don't look like they're quite done yet. I'd put them in for another, probably 2 to 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes. But you can see that they're getting very close. I'm going to show you on the bottom. The bottom tends to brown first. So you can see they're just starting to get brown on the bottom. But you want to see a light brown on the outside of the rolls. That will make them nice and crispy. Thank you for joining me today in making homemade dinner rolls from scratch. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button below, hit the like button as well, and I hope to see you soon on our next adventure on Nana Teaches.